Welcome to the Games Revealed podcast brought to you by Bunny Strike Studios. This is James.
And I'm Tyson.
And this is Shagwa.
Shag's back in the office.
Back in black.
Yep.
He's got a red hoodie on.
Well, I mean, it should be black. He'd look better in it.
I actually do think I look pretty good in black. I'm not going to lie.
You know what also looks
appreciate
really,
that, James. Thank
really
you.
good? Fallout New Vegas. Not graphically, but it's just a beautiful game.
I'll concede that the trailers looked really good. I remember seeing trailers for this game and being like, F yes, another Fallout, please sign me up for this game.
And, well, with Fallout New Vegas, just a little bit about what this is about. You become something more than a vault baby, which is different than Fallout, all the other Fallouts, with parent issues, like in the sense like, and all the other ones you're a vault baby with parent issues. That's essentially what.
Dad didn't love me enough.
Yeah.
Or dad ran off. Or
Dad went off
I'm
to
the
get
dad
smoked.
now of the dad. Or something.
I'm the dad
Or
of
Dad loved
myself.
science more than he loved me.
I'm my own grandpa.
No, but instead, in New Vegas, you get shot in the face and you wander the New Vegas area. And in it is essentially, it's the new death simulator, I feel like. Because if you just take one wrong left, dead. If you go into just one little pool, dead. If you run into a ghoul, dead. Bandit's dead. Brain gets pushed out your head in one of the DLCs. It's a death simulator, but still, it's beautiful. If you can just circumvent all those issues, it's a beautiful game.
It's basically John Wick if John Wick was a bad movie and you were the puppy.
Hey, I'll still
I don't know
take
about
that.
that. I don't know about that. I am John Wick in this game. Nothing can kill me except
Well,
for everything.
Sorry, I should say if you were both John Wick and the puppy, because you got to go get the revenge, but you also got killed for no reason.
Yeah, essentially with this game, like the first time it kicked my ass, but now that I've played it, I've put 110 hours into this game, so I know what I'm talking about.
Whoa.
Maybe. Even though I forgot half the stuff I've done in this after talking about this.
Half the stuff he's going to tell you is going to come from Fallout 4. A third of it's going to come from Fallout 3.
I'm okay at distinguishing between the games for the most part, but I might get something wrong.
Couple tidbits are coming from 76.
I came with hard
76
facts.
is the one I played 2 hours of.
That's why I'm challenging James here, because I came with cold hard facts. There is not a single made up or opinionated bit of information that I brought to my end of the table today.
This is the podcast where you get a bingo for all the wrong things that Shag says wrong if you can line it up with the paper that we're going to provide someday.
That's a bingo.
But the second playthrough, going through it this time, I've been able to just get around everyone and kill everything because, you know, I know what to kind of avoid. And so it's been a much more pleasurable. And then use that cue if you're on the keyboard. It just auto runs. You can watch something while he's walking half the distance. Because that's one of the annoying things, right? Is the walking in this.
Just increase your movement speed. And then everything else is that fast too, so it's even more fun.
Look, like any game,
like
increase the
living in an
movement
anthill.
speed, increase your carrying capacity, you win the game.
That's how I play these games. Even with Valheim, I don't know if there is a real way like in that game, but like I always try to increase my weight limit that I can carry.
Yeah.
Always, because I'm always trying to get all the treasures. In New Vegas and Fallout 3, going back, like, you don't really need to collect everything. Just collect the stuff that's really valuable, and you can get away with it. And a companion, you can shove it into their backpack, and I think they can hold, like, an infinite, can't they?
No, I think they get to a point where they can't carry anymore, but I feel like they still carry a lot.
I think the robot companions can carry about infinite.
The super mutant carries a dope load. Like, I always have him as a companion.
And so that's where it's useful. And Fallout 4, I feel like they actually make use of the whole environment. And that's one of the frustrating things going back through this, kind of the memories of like, yeah, pretty much everything that you can loot is useless just to sell. Or if it's a gun, you know, you run into ammo and gun. That's what's worth picking up because, you know, it's a waste of time, really, if you do anything else, in my opinion. But what's really was the most memorable part of this was in the beginning, you can take a left or a right when you hit the road. So you can go like north or south, I believe is how the directions are. If you go north, it's a shortcut to get to Vegas, where you're like, yeah, I'm probably going to have to go there. I'm going to go there first. That's how I did it the first time I played through. And it was hell because pretty much a minute in going north, you're going to get effed over by Deathclaws. like hard. Like that was me. Like I was trying to get through there, running through. You couldn't. Like I'm sure. I think they really. I think they even said in an interview that they tried to prevent that from being like. They just wanted you to get effed a bunch and then go back the other way because you're cheating the system, and it really is like that's a nest area.
How dare you turn left, you hacksaw?
I tried to go to a certain radio frequency DLC. I was like, I want to go to the Happy Trails, which I believe is directly north. I tried, I think, the Sierra Mountains before that, and hit the same thing. Like I just hit these badass super mutants that were going to try and whoop my shit. So I'm like, all right, we'll go to this other one. Tried to go through the Deathclaw zone, and I'm just like, holy hell. I fought a young Deathclaw, whooped its ass, and then another one just came, like an adult came and just beat the hell out of me. And so I'm like, yep, that's exactly what happened. I have to go the other way. I guess I'm going to go to Prim and do this shit because I decided to start over.
Yeah, like this, and this game has a lot of moments like that are pretty memorable and that stick out compared to some other Half-Life games. That is something it does actually have over, sorry, not Half-Life, Fallout games. But it is something it does have over some Fallout games. But I remember distinctly this moment from my gameplay because I rolled across a Deathclaw as he was walking away, like down an alleyway, and I'm like, oh, nice, I'm gonna take this guy out. And big mistake. I drew attention to myself. Basically, like was a mosquito trying to get some of that sweet Deathclaw blood. And with my personality. After he crushed me, I could not let that go. So I spent a long time and a bunch of ammo trying to take him down, only to find out he has friends.
Yeah, they're everywhere. It's almost impossible to get past that part unless you do some type of cheat.
Yeah, really. I don't think I did get past it. I for sure got a Deathclaw down or two, but I realized quickly that there was no way through this. My vengeance could not be paid in full until later.
Well, and with the Deathclaws, they're freaky on their own. Like you see one, they're massive, especially back then when the games like Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. Like when I think I was in my early 20s at that time, and it freaked me out because they're just so big. Nothing like that really in the game. It feels like in other games, but they were engineered for the Great War by the U.S. government. Just so you know, like they just took a bunch of different animals and put them together and said, "Okay, we're going to use this in the next war," and they never did. They escaped, and then they became...
Oh, so they're not Deathclaws. It's pronounced Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
But the one of the interesting, I would say, things about this game, and the other Fallouts have it, are the companions. The companions I found were well written in this. They have good dialogue. They have, if not very tropish personalities, they have good personalities that I think the other Fallouts didn't do as well in developing, because they can be a little bland. I feel like at least in Fallout 3 they were a little bit more bland, but they still, because you just want dog meat in the end, you know. In Fallout 3 you're just going to use dog meat because the other ones have less personality, which is sad to say. But my favorite companion was Boone. Anyone else have a favorite companion that they remember from the game?
I'm trying to remember what the super mutant's name was, but he was the one I always kicked around with. Can't remember.
Wasn't he like a pacifist too?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was awesome. I really liked that super mutant too. Like, and I think you meet him up in the top left of the map. The reason I like Boone, and it wasn't because of his personality, because he's really harsh.
Boone's redonkulous. But he's useful.
But he's very useful. He's really good at killing, and he gives you good perk where you get better at killing, I believe, in marksman mode. So if you're looking down, you do more damage when you shoot the bad guys.
Companion perks, that's awesome.
But like his mission is to essentially get him, like, so all of the companions, I think you essentially have to do something to earn their trust to become a part of it, like to be a companion. And with his companion, you have to investigate the town and find out who's the one that sold his wife, pregnant wife, I don't even know if, I think he knew that, to the Legion as a slave. And so one of the town's members did that because she was complaining she wanted to take him to Vegas. Come to find out, it was the innkeeper. She's the one that did it. You find the note, and you're just like, and you read this, you're like, how could someone do this to someone? You know, like, how could you sell? And you read the bill of sell.
And then you immediately sell the innkeeper into slavery.
No,
sorry.
You're supposed to do.
You lead her into the front of the tower, put your beret on, like that he gives you, and he shoots her, and you just, because of the gore mod I have on, her head explodes, eyeballs go everywhere. I mean, there's like 4 eyeballs in her. It wasn't correct, but Fallout physics.
This is post-nuclear war.
That's true.
She could have 4 eyeballs.
It was is something that was hard to do in a lot of ways, because it's like, that's still kind of wrong, but at the same time, what she did was wrong. But then you get Boone, and he likes to kill the Legion. I like to kill the Legion. Best friends forever.
I'm really scared to work for this company now because of James's love for vigilante justice.
All I know is
I just want to murder people.
if you find that I'm leading you somewhere, yeah, okay, come here. Yep, out in the open. Yeah, just stand right here.
We need a crowbar for this.
You scripted this wrong. And then I'm just paranoid that someone's following me every time I drive home.
That's what the crowbar is going to break in case of a mistake. And it'll just have your face on it.
No, I think I rolled with Boone for the majority of the game, but then did switch over to the big guy when I found him, which for me was very late game. I didn't come across the super mutant until very late in the game.
He's in a late game area, but yeah, for sure, like, he was fun.
But
like,
I will say the reason that I did switch is because Boone is super NCR motivated. And in this game, I didn't like any of the factions. Like, not that they weren't well written. They did a great job creating the factions. But, like, as far as idealisms and wanting to join up or be on the side of any of them, I didn't like any of them. So it was my goal to play this game and not be part of a faction. So I ended up having to take out Boone because he wanted to take me out because I was taking out his NCR buddies.
Yeah, I sided with NCR was like a nudge to the positive. I would try to be on their positive.
Early game you need to because they'll mess you.
Well, yeah, Legion's the ones that like Legion and the cons, and we'll get into factions a little later. The ones that I kind of went after, but yeah, no, the companions. Like there was one other one. It was one of those floating balls. I can't remember what they're called, but they go around to like in I think Fallout 3 announcing things with the. Yeah, I don't know what they're called per se, but you can get him as a companion. And
like the ED1 or whatever.
And so you have to repair him, and you can get him as a companion. And he's a great one because he can carry a ton, and I don't remember what else he's like dog meat.
He can be like a radio too, right? Can you like turn him on, listen to radio tunes?
You can listen to the radio with your Pip-Boy, so.
Yeah, but that's too close. You know, I like having a speaker around me, but not right in my ears.
Reminds me of those Mario 64 days where the camera guy, you could see, if you looked in a mirror, you could see him floating in the cloud with the camera on the fishing pole. Just keeps you in the world. Not breaking any fourth walls.
So they have a lot of good companions. I don't remember more than that because I never got that far, because I do remember like there was a chick that was kind of interesting. They all were fairly interesting characters, but writing's gotten better since then. I think there's games that have done it better since. But one of the interesting things, also, like one of the memories is you just don't see kids very often.
Good riddance. And
a part of that is because it's a theory, but and I think it's a good theory, is that a lot of them were they were enslaved by the Legion, and they just were eliminated. They just didn't survive in this harsh area. But yeah.
No, this game had a really cool feature in it where I went around and killed all the kids in the villages, and then found out later that made it so there weren't kids in anyone else's games.
Oh,
so like that was some pretty next gen thinking of Obsidian when they created this game.
You solved it, Taylor.
Facts. I told you I'm coming with cold hard facts, guys.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting because you don't see kids in there very much. I mean, you don't see kids very often in the Fallout worlds anyways, because they're just, I think it's just because they're so harsh. Plus, people don't like to see kids suffering.
Yeah, I think that's probably a large part of it. Like, it's such a difficult and hard world that they're like, let's just make it palatable and not stuff a bunch of children into these games.
Yeah, it's already dark enough as it is.
Exactly. And then, like, one of the last little memories, because there's a lot of memories, but, like, finding the Remnants power armor was very fun. It's in the top left corner of the map. It's in one of the later areas. And you have to go into a bunker. There's a whole mission about it where the guy dies kind of like in the doorway in a shootout. in his power armor.
Oh, yeah.
But the Remnant's power armor is just so badass. Like, it's definitely worth picking up as soon as you can, because if you keep that thing repaired, you'll be able to kill anything in that game.
That's the one where you have
whatever.
to like fight that crazy mech thing that you let out, right?
I think so.
Oh, that was one of the funnest fights in the game, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I don't remember the armor that well, but I remember the fight and loved it. And like that was one of the ones where you felt like your choices mattered. Like I felt like, for me, I felt like you could have saved the guy that was kind of starting you on that mission, but I failed to. So like there was all that like emotional processing of that as well. Like, I didn't do good enough, but also that mech's dead, so I feel real great.
But yeah, that's some of the big memories for me. I mean, there's a lot of little ones just along the way where, hitting people where they're fighting over the bottle caps.
I love that shit.
That stuff where you see them fighting and one's like, he was trying to kill me, depending, and then like I just kill both of them in the right way to where you don't lose karma, and you get the bottle caps.
Yep.
The classic, if you guys can't decide whose baby this is, I'm going to cut the baby in half and you guys can both have half.
I'm going to take the baby and kill both of you.
That's about right.
This is my baby and I will not let a dingo eat my baby.
But right around that area, you first encounter the Legion, and it's very interesting, like the whole story that ensues with the Legion, what they're doing in that town.
I will say it's very different than the Legion in Fallout 3. Like it's drastically different.
Yeah.
Was the Legion in Fallout 3?
Mm-hmm. That's like the final boss in Fallout 3.
Huh, I don't remember that well enough, apparently. But no, the Legion in this, I didn't really care for the factions, because I like kind of being able to float between everything. That's why I like the factions in Cyberpunk so much. I like that I'm not a part of any of them. And in this one, becoming a part of one sets you off on somebody else, and I hated it. But the ones I hated the most were the Legion, because like James says, very early on in this area, you get introduced to these guys, and you meet this fella running out of this town named Oliver, and he's just shouting that he's the lottery winner. And so he's pumped about something. So you're asking him, he's like, lottery? He's like, the air tastes sweet out here and all this crap. So you're like, what the hell's going on? The town's in ruins. Like, it looks like hell. And then I go into the general store, and there's a fella sitting in there. I think his name is Booker. He tells me that he's the second place winner, but he can't move from that chair because they bashed his legs in to the point that he's crippled and he can't move anymore. But at least he's still alive, because everybody else gets crucified or killed. The mayor got burned to death. And so the Legion, the reason they leave these lottery winners alive is so that they can spread the tale of the Legion. And so that's their lottery, is they get to live while everyone else just gets tortured and crucified and just freaking brutalized.
It's very brutal, and for me, that's where I learned that I'm like, yeah, I don't like the Legion. They're my number one enemy in this game.
Oh yeah, like I'm not a fan of those guys, so I constantly just kill them wherever I see them.
Yep.
And the worst part is like you'll go around and run into these Legion camps, and the crucified, the ones that are still alive, you have two options. You can leave them there or kill them.
Yep.
So you're either going to murder somebody or be a heartless bastard and just let them continue suffering. So it's pretty crazy, honestly. Like, as far as what the game looks like, they do keep it pretty lighthearted with the music and stuff. And I've always kind of felt like it was more not so dark, but if you really look and consider what's going on, it's dark as hell.
Oh, it's very dark.
So I just fact-checked myself, and the Legion is not in Fallout 3, which would explain why they're so vastly different.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like 3 you're fighting like the government or something like that.
You're, oftentimes
you
you
end
fight
in the
the
White
Enclave.
House, I think. The Enclave or something. Yeah.
You end up fighting the Enclave, because there's always those types of, yeah.
But I will say, since we're on the subject of the Legion, the Legion camp, like trying to go in and siege that one, that is a difficult move, but it's a fun one. If you ever work up the nerve to do it, that's a fun way to go die a lot of times.
Yeah, I will say, playing back in this game, it feels like every one of these NPCs are snipers, man. Like, they freaking land every hit they shoot.
If you get good enough and get everything, I think you can go wipe out their camp. And I think I did that, and I finished the game, and they still were there. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
You're still alive, but I killed you.
Yeah, but you're dead. So they are by far the worst faction in my opinion. They're the ultimate enemy, the number one sick bastards, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And that is definitely like going into that. You go into the building, you get to see everyone's dead, then the dogs attack you for some reason, and then it's just. And the reason why they crucified these people is because they were serving more than just the Legion. They were serving the Powder Gang. They were being whores amongst just offering, merchandise or what? Not merchandise, but being a merchant amongst everyone.
Mm-hmm.
See, they needed music in that age because then they would know that song. We can whore if we wanna. We can leave our friends behind.
No,
and your friends don't whore, and if they don't whore, they ain't no friends of mine.
We have different friends apparently.
Certified whore.
No, it's they're interesting, yeah, because they're very archaic in their practice, but that's like in their mind that is how they're going to survive, like what is befallen the world. So it's just an interesting mindset, but they also are dogmatic in their practice of it.
Yeah. No, and for sure. Well, and they're one of the most strong factions that you run into, but there's other factions you run into, of course, and they're like the Brotherhood of Steel are still there. They're in all of them, all the Fallouts that I like, all the at least modern Fallouts.
Yeah.
There's the Great Khans, which they're lesser. There's obviously like a couple of major ones. I would say NCR and. I always want to say NPR, but NCR and the Legion, they're both the big ones, right? And then there's also houses, free economic, whatever, and then there's one other one. But the ones that stand out to me were like the Brotherhood of Steel, which are always kind of a cool concept where they almost on the concept of trying to get strong through technology. The Great Khans, where they're like, what was good back in the day, raping and pillaging and then taking territory. That's the story we want to follow, where the Legion followed a little bit more structured version of that, more where it was still archaic for today's kind of thing. The Great Khans just went really barbaric. And that really stood out to me in this game. That the factions really stood out to me. They were, it would make sense that there would be a lot of factions in a world like this, especially, not every region's going to have strong factions, but it would make sense that there would be regions of the world that would get really faction based like this. And it's kind of weird that this is the place that kind of did it, and they took so much from history, but I think it's a fun play that just hasn't been done very much, where it's like, okay, yeah, we're based on on Caesar's, or on like essentially Rome, right? Not like and it feels like it's more of the harsher parts of Rome. Same thing with the Great Khans, where I don't know if it's the harsher parts of the Khan, but they're just pillaging and killing and whatnot.
They're living up to that Genghis Khan reputation. And what is it, like 94% of the world's population has lineage that can be traced back to Genghis Khan? Isn't it something like that?
It's a just crazy amount.
So it is cool how they tie like real world stuff into some of the mythology of their factions.
Or it was just the Caesar Hotel and Casino.
Yeah. Or the Genghis Khan Casino over on Fremont Street.
They got a Great Khan Casino.
Yeah, no, and it just and we've already touched on it, but like and then there's Caesar's Legion, which we already touched on quite a bit, and it just I sided with NCR just because the two really main factions you can side with are those, and then I think House.
You commie bastard.
You can do something for the House. I think I ended up doing NCR though, because it just felt like the best of all three. House was such an interesting story, which we'll get into a little bit later, but that's really it for me on the factions.
Yeah, I think I went with NCR as well. I usually tend to lean towards the better side of things while still doing like dirty stuff, like killing, innocent or stealing their shit sometimes, because I am a true nomad. I do whatever I want.
Yeah,
that's more of a rogue.
I will say Fallout Vegas gives you the best nomad experience out of any Fallout that I've played. Like, you really, truly feel, even like the clothing and just everything about it gave you a much more of a nomadic feel.
I like going into some of the characters that are more, not necessarily the factions, but the crazy characters that you'll find inside the world. And I think we're going to talk about quite a bit of them, but one of my favorite ones and one of the creepier ones are the ghosts. So you'll run across these guys that are just stuck inside these gas suits, and it's coming from this cloud, this toxic poison cloud, and they got into their suits, but the suits weren't good enough, and so it like fused them into this suit and changed who they are, and all they want to do now is just bring people down into the cloud and join their hellish existence of just like hate and just wanting to bring more people into there, kill more people, and bring more people into the cloud. That's all they want. And the more people they have doing that, the more it's going to spread. I feel like that's like the classic zombie or a virus or something, or a meat moon. It's just the best way to spread the freaking hate is just what does every victim of the cloud want? To bring more victims.
Yeah, it's a very different take on it, like a zombie. It's like a gas. It's not a virus. It's a gas, right? And so
yeah, it's a gas. Just a green cloud, green gas.
I completely forgot about this part, and it's such a memorable part. I'm surprised because it's just crazy that something, and we haven't really seen it since used in such a way, but like a gas could potentially cause brain damage or cause someone to lose control to where they would, start doing a certain programmed thing, like with a virus.
Yeah, or like Last of Us, the mushroom spores or some shit like that.
Which was a very nice take on a very oversaturated market. Even though I like zombies, it was nice to see a different way to become a zombie.
Yeah, it's not just rage. So I liked running across that, seeing the ghosts, even like there's some where it's like a skeleton in a suit that's just gunning you down with a Gatling gun. Probably one of my more favorite encounters with some of the enemies that are in there. I know Deathclaws are fine and all that shit, but far as ghosts go, one of my favorites. What is To the Moon and Back?
To the Moon and Back is a mission. It's a mission that it's the most memorable mission for me because you essentially it's kind of a little bit earlier on in the game when you encounter this is before you encounter Vegas. You can go up into the mountains and go to this rocket research area where they can launch rockets into space. I don't know beyond that how much it really is like a rocket research or if it's just a fun place. I don't know. But you run into some ghouls there that are worshiping the great creator, and they have their prophet like ghoul who's glowing. He's one of the radiated ghouls, and they're all sentient because there's ghouls, there's sentient ghouls, and then there's obviously feral ghouls. You run into some feral ghouls, and they get upset that you kill the ghouls along the way, but in the end they're like, well, we need you to take down some of the mutants that have broken in, and they're trying to get stealth boys. So can you take that out? So you help them out, and then you essentially they're like, okay, now we're going to ascend. The great creator wants us to go to their place in the sky, and you help, and you're just. And they also friend this one. This is where some of the humor comes into the game, where they friend this human who comes like, yeah, the people. Where in the vault that I was working for, they made me be in the radiation a bunch working on the engines and stuff, and I'm hideous. I'm a ghoul now. They turned me into a ghoul, and he's just bald. He's just bald, he's like, I'm hideous. I smooth skin, and he sounds like a freaking ghoul, He's just calling you smooth skin, and he's there helping, and then you have to you can either I think if you don't help him out, you can convince him to try to go there with him, and they'll die because. In the launch area, there's a bunch of radiation, so you can convince him that he's not, which is kind of interesting. You have to talk him through it. It's like, you're not a ghoul, and he just gets pissed. It's like, should we sabotage her then? Should we just kill these guys? I'm like, let's not go that far. It's your fault you got tricked, dude. And you're just having to go through, because you can sabotage and they'll just die. They'll just bomb into the mountain.
Dude's got some buyer's remorse, man.
Pretty much, but.
I got conned and I want my money back.
In the end, when you finish all the missions, you launch them into space. Now, there's another part where if you're not really good at repairs, I think you're supposed to fix the navigation. So I think one of the pods goes off, and I think you can find it later on. It's been so long since I played that part. But it's just like the details that went into that mission, the hilarity, and the cult, what a cult can bring you to do, get launched into space. What are you going to do? You know, you're going to get launched up in there. Where are you going to go? Like, you're not going to, I can't remember if ghouls survive. I think they can survive forever without eating, or they'll slowly decay. Because ghouls can live for a very long time. I just don't think they have to eat. So they're going to be out in space a very long time, potentially not. And if they land into they're dead.
I think they survive off of radiation too, don't they?
They might,
so that's like the perfect environment.
Yeah, because there's no atmosphere to protect them from the space radiation. So, dude, we're gonna have some real problems when Musk finally colonizes Mars if the ghouls got there first.
Oh yeah, ghouls are out there.
Well, I mean,
unless they're friendly ghouls, then maybe we're fine.
I don't think the rockets can land. So like, they go out into this expanse and they're gonna be stuck there for who knows how long, living until they decay, until they go feral. So it sounds like a miserable existence. It sounds like they just really just. And they were very peaceful because one of the reasons they want to do it is because mankind just humans kill each other, and it makes sense.
I've never heard of this.
It makes sense because like with the Fallouts, it's such a that
they're always based around war.
Oh yeah, war. I mean, war killed everyone. We're coming back in, and then there's more war, and so they're trying to escape that. So it kind of makes sense. It's such a weird thing to find along the way, and you're just like. I just sent some ghouls into space. Never done that before. And you're probably never going to do that again.
James is over there just bucket list. Click.
I forgot about that mission. I forgot how fun that mission is, too. And especially sending the rocket into space or sabotaging it to just freaking destroy. I love it. One of my favorite missions, though, it's kind of going to the opposite because I like that one and I remember it. I don't really take too much darkness from it. This one's like a complete opposite. Like walking into this one, you're met with 4 bodies outside of the vault, and this is Vault 11 specifically. And this one blew my mind. So you go into this vault, you're looting, you're dealing with the scorpions and the other crap that's inside of this vault, and then you're discovering what happened to the inhabitants of this vault. Well, what you figure out is that this vault was used as a social experiment, and every year they had an annual sacrifice. Basically, to keep humanity alive, they needed to kill someone every year. And they had a message that came across the speaker system that, was like, all right, time to sacrifice, like, who you doing? And they rotated who was the overseer in the vault, because, I mean, that's just a stressful situation. And to have one person deciding who's always going to die, everyone's going to be pissed at that because that person's never going to choose themselves. So they had this rotating just system, and it was such an odd place. And then it came down to the final survivors, and they said, no, we're not killing anyone. We're not going to choose this anymore. And then what happened is they went, okay, well, the door's unlocked. You guys can choose to live here if you want or explore the wasteland. Basically, the experiment's over, And then that was it. And they were allowed to leave. And what then you realize is those 4 bodies that were outside, all with weapons next to them, discharged, they killed themselves. So after all of that, the guilt was too much for them to handle, and they all capped themselves except for one. Because there were 5 survivors, but there's only 4 bodies laying. So somebody went out and decided to explore.
Yeah, I wonder if you can find. Do you? I was going to ask.
Pretty sure you run into them
because I remember this vault and really this is one of those ones where you're just like, this is messed up but amazing. Like that's just great storytelling. So much is said without directly being said, like you explained with the dudes outside the door. Mm-hmm. But what a cool mission, man! But that's crazy that you can find the guy. Does he elaborate like on what it was like living in the vault? Or?
I don't remember. I feel like you find a bunch of people throughout the game that been in these vaults and stuff like that. That's what I feel like. Obviously, I could be wrong. You could fact check me. But like with this vault, like Vault 11, it show like there's so like the vault tech are horrible people essentially because they use a lot of the vaults. Like they're like, okay, if you're rich, you get a nice vault. You get all these nice vaults and stuff like that. Okay. We'll do experiments by letting people lottery into these vaults, and then we'll do experiments on them.
And
there's
nuts.
so many different ones that just they really go into these experiments, and this is one of the ones where you're just like, how could you think that this was going to be a good idea and that this was legal? And it's just like, well, once the apocalypse hits, I guess it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, it's like realistically, what benefit to mankind did that even bring at all?
Yeah, it's interesting too because there's always, I mean, there's more than just Vault 11 too. There's a couple of vaults that are really interesting, but
yeah, well, and the other vault that there's a couple of vaults in every game, right? And so in this one, Vault 22 has a really just it's a interesting one because you go into it and there's just plant life everywhere, and essentially this experiment, I don't remember exactly the whole experiment, but the scientists that lived in Vault 22 were attempting to extend the lifespan of plant life and find ways for plants to survive underground. It was a lot of different ways, and it just they ran amok. They started turning the people in there into plant monsters, and they just mutated, and you just walk into this mess of a plant vault, and it's all the experiments that go on in the Fallout game where you're like, man, this split of humanity was just horrible. No wonder, like, it's obviously, in my opinion, very different than what our humanity is and what us as humans are now, but like they really want to go into those World War II Hitler style experiments, you know, like
I was going to say like the crossover to real life where it does bring mention to real life events and organizations that have done similar things like this, you know, under the guise of being helpful, which is what makes it all the more entertaining as a story and all the more fascinating as you discover them. Dude, by the way, Bethesda come out with a book that is just all of the experimental vaults that weren't just the vaults that were like, here's a bunker. And I would buy that book. I would love to read all of those stories.
They could they could do a lot of different stories just based off of, like, you get the Resident Evil books, there's StarCraft books. They could do some really good Fallout books, which I can't remember if they have Fallout books, but if they even surrounded them around some of the vaults, they would be, I think, primo.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I'd buy that. It's good lore. It's good solid lore, and it's dark enough that, you know, it's interesting to most adults.
It would be very interesting.
But this vault always reminds me of like a cross between Little Shop of Horrors and Last of Us Zombies.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it really is. That's exactly it right there. But you know what my favorite vault is? The vault with all our ads in it. And they're just beautiful. You can open it up. They're not an experiment. Well, maybe you could say, because it was a success. And they're just amazing to listen to. Listen to that right now. It's the same thing that you're always going to get. Maybe it's it's a hellscape. Get out now.
Let's pick a random ad from the vault. Let's play this one.
And we're back from that beautiful, beautiful ad. That's
so random and just different than the other ones we've experienced. I love it.
It's a deep, deep vault. Deep vault.
It's a deep vault.
I don't know that anyone's reached the end of that vault.
Eventually, we'll redo some ads. We'll get to it.
Yeah. No, and if you didn't listen to an ad, if you're on YouTube, then you just got to hear a great banter. So.
I love the get out while you can.
One of the things that we've yet to cover, and this is a big part of the story, is Robert House. And he is the mysterious guy that's running Vegas, essentially, and he has his own faction. He's been running things for hundreds of years, and the way that he's preserved himself is that he's essentially, his body he's preserved in this like VR setup almost, where his brain is like, and that's the thing in the Fallout universes, like they really like the brain. They don't usually download the brain into like memory or anything like that. They use the brain for a lot of things. There's a lot of DLC about that. That you run into robots that have brains, you know, like defense robots that will use brains for processing power and memories and stuff like that. So like it's very reasonable that they couldn't just preserve a person and their brain, but they went a step forward. House just preserved his whole body, and then he does everything digitally. So he's in the computer systems. You see him when you communicate with him. It's always through a computer terminal, and you can see his face, like it was kind of like back in before the Great War and all that stuff, and like just the whole story, like finding out who he was, because you know that there's always something kind of weird going on with him when you're interacting with him. Like, why is he always just on this monitor like this? There's something going on here, and I thought it was going to be just like an AI or something.
Now, is that technology that kind of preserves him? And I know we're getting further into that. I know you run across those aliens that are using brains as well. Like, that's in here, right? Or is that a DLC?
There is aliens. I don't know. You run across like dead aliens. I don't know how many real aliens that survive you run across in this type of game. The Old World Blues, I think is what it's called. It's the DLC where you get into the brains, and we'll get into that a little bit later.
Oh, okay,
and it's fascinating too. But like, just House and how he is. I think he's not necessarily a bad guy. Like, with all the factions they have there, some good to them, even including the Legion. They want order. They want some order. They just go about order in a very wrong way. House has his own way of like wanting to make sure Vegas survives. Like he's like his CEO. You know, he wants his company and he wants his assets to survive. He wants to survive. He wants to keep going. But I'm pretty sure I murked this guy. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember who had you do it or what, but I'm pretty sure I killed this guy. And I think it. And I can't remember. It could be because I found out something nefarious, maybe, or it's just you had to do it to finish the game. Because I always waited until the very end with these types of factions to choose the one that you wanted to end the game on. I was like, okay, I'm going to hold off on that until I'm done exploring the world and stuff like that, and then I'll make the decision. So I don't remember. Do you remember what you guys did at this part?
Oh, I killed him. At this point, I killed all of the faction leaders because I was hated by everyone.
Oh.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I just went run and gun and killed all of them.
I think I killed him because I just didn't like the information that he withheld for so long.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of my personality is like, I mean, everyone has their secrets. I'm not trying to say I need to know everything, but it was so fishy the way, like you were saying, with the screens and the monitors and the way that he would talk to you, that by the time the reveal happened, I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to unplug this shit. Which surprisingly ended up being way more difficult than I anticipated this particular fight to be. But yeah, he got turned off.
Boo.
Yep.
He did.
With rockets.
Lights out. No, I am pretty sure I killed House, and if I would have known about a certain perk moving forward, I definitely would have eaten the portion of Mr. House that I could have. Because there is a perk that's out there called Meat of Champions, and you basically have to be willing to fail a good portion of the missions to get this. But what you do is you have to eat the bodies of the Caesar, of the leader of the Caesars, the Caesar Legion, Mr. House, the King, President Kimball. And you can only do this if you have the cannibal perk. But what you'll get is a +1 to luck, intelligence, charisma, and strength for 60 seconds after eating any human corpse.
So can you keep the corpse on you and you just like...
Yeah, I'm pretty... Why not, you know? Put them in your satchel, a little on your Pit Boy, you just lick it.
Oh my gosh.
A little flavor saver. But no, this was super jacked up because you got to know about this perk, or you just want to be eating people to get this thing. I only learned about this looking into these stories, and I saw to get Meat of Champions, you have to go through this whole thing. But insane. Eat all of those people to get this badass perk.
There is a perk. So there's perks. So when you're leveling up your character and all that jazz, there are perks that you can get, and one of them is being a cannibal. And I think you can... being a cannibal will hurt your reputation.
Yeah.
Like, people don't like that, even if no one's around.
People doesn't like cannibals.
But it does help. Like, it does do. I think it gets rid of the negative effects of being a cannibal. So that would totally pair well with this. So that makes.
Oh yeah.
That makes, like, that's a stack right there, man. That's awesome.
Makes you wonder about the dudes that found this out, because I would bet that this was probably, they kept a lid on it to be something cool to find in the game. So you got to wonder about those dudes that ate so many corpses that they happened to eat all of the bosses.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, how do you find it other than data mining or something and realizing?
I bet it was easy, because I bet you in the first year they found out, because people like to eat.
Oh, yeah, somebody's going to go through as a cannibal. Role-playing actually happens with most people in these games.
I mean, you went through as an asshole and killed everyone.
And that's who I play as every playthrough.
I mean, you should probably play as someone different than yourself, but,
it's the life I love. Kidding. And the second life, who needs it when you get the perfect one?
That's funny. You're like, okay, you can do anything in this life. You can be whatever you want. I hate you.
Yeah.
Well, you're a piece of shit.
New Vegas was an interesting one with their character development, because all of their characters had some pretty major flaws. I mean, even the ones that you liked. Like, New Vegas was full of scumbags. Like, even just like normal villagers were just scummy. So like, this is a game where it really wasn't hard to just run around and murk entire villages and just be fine with it.
I don't know if I'd go as far as they're all horrible, but there's definitely, I ran into plenty of townspeople that were nice. It's just, I think the writing got better. Like, that's one of the things that's good about, like, Obsidian Entertainment. They're good at writing. They're good at creating certain systems that do well. And, including that, they're also great at creating DLC. And so one of this is what stood out to me the most. I'm really bad at playing DLC after a game comes out because it's just so hard to get back into the game. When you're done with the game, you're kind of done with it, especially when you put in hundreds of hours into something, you know. I don't know if you guys, how much time you guys put into it, but I put 100 hours into it. Well, I probably put 70 hours into it because then the DLC came out and I probably put another 20, 30 or maybe 80 hours I put into it. And the DLC that came out, and I guess to help a little bit with why I like the DLC and this game is that I'm not going to out anyone else here where they're from, but I'm from St. George, Utah, which is just 2 hours from Vegas. So I've been to Vegas a bunch of different times, and it was cool that I was able to play in a world that was near me. That doesn't happen very often. Like in The Last of Us, you get to see Salt Lake. I've been to Salt Lake a bunch of different times. It's in Utah. It's cool to kind of have that relation. So for me, it had that relation to where I lived. And in the DLC, you get to go to Zion Canyon, like essentially the Zion National Park area, and you get...
I love hiking in New Vegas.
You love hiking in New Vegas?
I get my backpack on, I put my camelback in, I get in my recliner, and I just hike the shit out of that canyon.
Takes a bunch of people meet with him.
Love it. You know? I gotta get that meat perk.
Gotta get that meat perk. Now, the Zion Canyon DLC was actually kind of boring, to be honest.
Well, yeah, hiking's pretty boring.
All
all the wildlife is gone. Nature is gone. It's a nuked place. I don't want to be there.
And they kind of really did, like, I think they kind of screwed this DLC up because I think that, like, a lot of things were destroyed. But I'm like, who would nuke the canyon? There's no one there. Like, it felt like it eroded more than it should have. Like, they should have taken a trip there. But it was cool that you got to go to Zion's. You got to do some cool stuff. I just wish they would have actually travel to Zion and see what it was like, because I don't know where they got their connection of, like, that's what Zion's looks like.
Let's look up a picture of this. Nah, we can guess it.
Like, it looks like Mars, right?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, Mars. Okay, we'll do Mars. And so that's the one that was, I still enjoyed it. I'm like, okay, cool. This is Zion's, you know, by me. Small town at the time.
Look at the majestic Deathclaw going up the slopes.
Yeah,
hiking Angel's Landing.
But what really, like, the DLC that stood out really well, and this is when I realized DLC can be good. Like, Witcher 3 has solidified that DLC can be great. The Old World Blues, you essentially go into this area of the world where you have these scientists that preserve themselves as brains, and they're these brains with eyeballs, and they talk to you and whatnot, and they want to do some more experiments. And I think what happened is, I think they knock you out at one point. You wake up and you see your brain in another container. So you're getting and they're able to you're able to control your body and stuff like that because they have a remote to the brain. Bizarre stuff. Like, this is a very bizarre, and I don't know if every Fallout fan likes this one because it goes really, really bizarre, but it's such interesting writing because you can talk with your brain at one point. It's we're trying to hunt down that one dude and get revenge, right? And it's like, what's
Let's
revenge?
do a brainstorm to figure out how to solve this problem.
Right? But it's like, you're still using the brain. It's such a weird concept, and it gets you thinking a little bit, but they have experiments they have you do. They have you go wander and grab stuff, and they're like, okay, when you get done, we'll put your brain back in.
It was quite the think tank that they had going on there.
I think that might even be a joke there too. Like, it's crazy, just how weird that DLC was, but it was good because it really tossed a lot of things up in the air that was so standard with Fallout New Vegas. So it kind of just it was freeing.
Yeah, I played that one for the first time probably 2 or 3 years ago when I re-picked up New Vegas just to kind of dink around with. And I hated it, honestly. I'm not a fan of those DLCs and the spaceness and the crazy alien crap. So I skipped a lot of the dialogue. Thank God.
I could see that. Well, and that's why I say, like, I think some Fallout fans don't like it because it goes really weird. For me, I really like it because it's something very different. Yeah. But there's a lot of DLC that goes very different, but it will still hold very true to the world, and that's the marked men, which is in the DLC Lonesome Road. And you essentially explore this divide. This is where the war between NCR and Caesar happened a while ago, and the survivors, the people that died, and maybe they didn't die, but some of them that survived but that got left behind, they essentially become ghouls from, I believe, the radiation, because there's a bomb that blew up or like a missile that blew up. They become ghouls. But in the process, because there's so much sand in this area, sandstorms, their skin's just ripped off. And so when you find them, they just wear armor, and they're all armored up because they have zero skin. And it's very sensitive. And it's just such a, like, I don't remember the full thing of this DLC, but like just the marked men alone was that you had to fight was just, it was interesting that you, that they're just skinless, irradiated people.
Yeah, I can't imagine. That's like taking a sandblaster to your skin for just like days and days and days till you're just this, I don't know, calloused, bitter being that just wants to kill everything.
That's pretty much what they are, and that was very, very memorable for me. But yeah.
No, and like you're saying, like there's DLCs in there for everybody, and I really enjoyed this one. And there's one we were talking about earlier that I can't remember, but you're in like a underground town. I'll figure that one out.
Is that a DLC?
Yeah, or something, man. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But that one was badass. DLC.
Because I know I'm
down. I'm pretty sure it's a DLC because I remember watching you playing it well after it had come out, and sure. I swear it was a DLC. But I mean, overall, like Shag says, what a great game this is. He just absolutely loved this game.
Yeah, man, I gotta say, like, I do like the Fallout series. I did not like this game, and to be honest, before I start kind of diving off and being a jerk about it, it's not that it's a bad game. None of the things that are present in a bad game are here. It's just nothing resonated with me. I didn't really like it. It just was like run around, kill people, whatever. The whole world was the same color. There was no, and I get it, it's post-apocalyptic, but like the color palette was just the same no matter where you went until you got into Vegas City and until you saw Reptar statue. Those were the only color variations in that entire world. It was the least entertaining to explore and walk around. So for me, I felt like Wesley in The Princess Bride when he's he's on that machine and they're sucking the life out of him. He's like, not to 50. I was like, give me back my life.
I will say the colors is right. I remember playing this all those years ago for the first time, and my wife was just like, I hate watching you play this game, because we only had the one TV at the time. And because it was for that, it's just ugly. Everything is ugly. Everything is the same and ugly.
Yeah, well, I think the problem that Shag's having is that he just exactly explained Fallout 3, and I think he's getting these flipped, because after talking about this, he sounds like he loves New Vegas, so he's just flipping these around a little bit too much.
There are things that Vegas does do better than other Fallouts. I feel like the guns were better. I do feel like character development was better because, like we talked about earlier, they added flaws, and that's how humans are. Humans are flawed. But to me, this game felt more empty than any other Fallout that I've ever played. And fortunately, I didn't play 76, so I don't have anything that I can put lower on the totem pole.
Yeah, that's probably the most empty.
That probably is.
But again, if we took this bad game and compared it to other bad games, it would be probably like one of the best games on the bad games list. Because there's nothing here that's telltale a bad game. It just was not for me. This was made for another crowd. And genuinely, one of the reasons I think that this game is it's bigger than a cult classic. Like, it's really beloved and really highly rated. I honestly think it's because it's one of the first games like Skyrim that was heavily modded and had a lot of mod support. Other Fallouts do have that, not how Vegas has it. New Vegas has a huge mod community, and I genuinely think that that's where the extra love comes from.
Yeah, no, I totally get you on that. Like, for me, booting it up every time, I'm like, yeah, this place is, and I'm not the biggest fan of deserts because I grew up in essentially a desert, but I'm like, it's still, like, in the beginning, I was like, oh, this is not great to look at, but Fallout 3 isn't really either. There's no plant life in a lot of these. Like, they have that filter where they fixed it a little bit with Fallout 4. They made it feel like at least a little bit, because I'm like, I get you, it's post-apocalyptic, but I don't want to look at brown or like slight red the whole game. It has to have some diversity, and I really think there is a lot of diversity in Fallout New Vegas, and a lot of things to find. Like I've already mentioned a ton of them. Like there's a lot to find in there. It's just you have to go through a lot of desert. So for me, I think I got around it because I'd watch stuff sometimes while I played this. While I wandered some areas, I'd watch something. But yeah, it really is. I get the people that don't like it, but I definitely, in my opinion, it's a better game than Fallout 3. Fallout 3 is still great. But when I got to New Vegas, it just really resonated with me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, it really has a big following. But it is like I can't fairly knock on it other than just saying it wasn't for me. It really had a lot to offer. I think it did bring a lot to the genre and the table. But again, just I mean, and I should be clear about like I played the game, I beat the game. I didn't play any of the DLC though, and I didn't mod it at all. So just on a base experience, it was one of the less memorable ones of any of the games I played on PS3.
And it's hard to get back into, to be honest. Like the graphics are just like I did some mods and it helped with that a lot, but like the graphics are just so old. They're old. Like even for the time, I feel like they were old. They still had some really good portions of graphic, like a lot of diversity, I would say, in textures. They did a good job with a lot of different things, but they also took a lot of that stuff from Fallout 3. The characters, man. You just look at the characters, like we had better characters back then than what they had, and that's always been a Fallout or a Bethesda issue, is character development and getting those characters to look good. I think they do a good,
both models and like backstory stuff.
So like both the Elder Scrolls and like the Fallout series.
What are you talking about? Oblivion, those characters were beautiful. They're like real life. I felt like I was looking down my street.
Every time I look at one, I'm like, this thing needs to be put down. It's suffering.
Your mother drank too much when you were a child.
Oh, you lived on one of those streets.
What? Like one of the cool, like, so this was developed not by the main studio, Bethesda. This was developed by Obsidian Entertainment, and they've done a lot of. They're really good at storytelling, and they're really good at creating certain systems, and they really did a good job in this. But the interesting thing was the people that the two guys that founded Obsidian Entertainment, Fergus and Chris, were also two creators on Fallout 2. Which was the original. I believe they were the original, like
top-down style ones,
right? The original top-down style Black Isle Studios, and so it wasn't like some random third-party studio came in. No, these guys have intimate knowledge of Fallout, so it really made sense that they were able to get in on it. It was cool that they were allowed to actually make one, because we haven't seen it yet, and I don't think. Like they want to. Obsidian wants to make another Fallout. It's just for some reason they did such a good job. They outshined Fallout 3. They're like, well, Bethesda's like, no, you can't do better than us. You can't do that. That's not allowed.
A Fallout money with no bugs in it.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. We're coming out with a real groundbreaker called Fallout 76 that'll really make us better than Obsidian, guys.
Oh, I don't want to do this, but like, Fallout 76 is essentially like, okay. Interns, yeah, you're doing coffee over there. You're doing that. Okay, guys, we're making Fallout 76, so we need this to be as cheap as possible because we need to make a lot of money.
Timmy, get us McDonald's because we are not splurging on lunch.
Pretty much, like that's kind of how they treated the Bethesda or the Fallout 76 one.
Now, I consider this an up point. I want to add in. You do feel a big difference in this game compared to other Fallouts because of Obsidian's touch to it, and I actually kind of like that because this is the type of setting. Sandbox worlds like this and a universe that is basically limitless like Fallout. It's actually kind of, in my opinion, a genius thing to do, is to license that out to other developers and get different interpretations, because when you license IPs out, you still get profit from that, and you typically will have worked into that deal a cut of copies sold. So if they really let other people take a crack at their versions of this while giving a certain amount of either oversight or stipulations on what needs to stay the same, we really could have some really amazing Fallout experiences. And while I personally dislike New Vegas, I do like that it was a step in a different direction as far as Fallouts go. It feels very different, and like Fallout 4, Fallout 3, it's Fallout. It feels like Fallout.
Yeah.
Fallout New Vegas, reminds you of Fallout. But it also feels like something different.
It feels like it was a good natural, I think, trend out to build on the franchise, and Fallout 5 needs to be like this. Because Fallout 4, I agree. Fallout 4 was awesome. I loved it. It was everything I liked about Fallout 3, but much better. It's just they needed to do more.
Yeah,
they needed to do a little bit more, and Fallout 5 really needs to bring that one thing they can get away with or get rid of is another settlement needs your help. Another settlement needs your help.
Holy hell, none of that.
Although, keep all the cool cult stuff. Fallout is one of my favorite genres for just weird cults, even when they're not like deep in their lore. I just like the crazy, kooky ideas because the world is gone, so people latch on to the simplest things. And Bethesda's never been shy to just be like, that's it. They just worship this bomb because it didn't kill them.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, I think they do a good job with factions. They do a good job with a lot of the world building. They're really good at world building. They have ghouls instead of zombies. That's just alone is different, and they do a very good job. What they could potentially improve on is a little bit more of their writing and their character development. They could do a little bit better. They have some very good world building with factions and characters. It's just you don't care about them as much. They could flesh them out a little bit more.
And maybe use like an engine that's good, like Unreal or something.
No, it comes down to both CD Projekt Red and Bethesda could learn from this. Their engines are garbage. And I hate to say that, but you're going to have to put a lot more money into developing it, or you need to switch because you're not, like, from my understanding, they're just not putting enough people on these teams to build out better engines.
I think their engines are great. They run clean burning oil efficiency. Okay, they get like 100 miles to the gallon. I love their engines.
No manual co-loading required. I kind of lost track of my thought there.
Because their engines were too good.
I was going to say engines. Beep boop beep. I do think that they do a good job, though. It does a good job of showing, like, when you do have good content, you don't necessarily have to have amazing graphics or the smoothest mechanics or all that. Like, a good idea and a fun place to be and explore is enough to carry a game. Yeah. But having said that, you add something when you put those other things on top of that good idea. So, like you say, those are just things they could improve. They're not really complaints, but it wouldn't hurt them. To have the game look better and play better would not be something people would complain about.
I agree. And guys, I think we're entering the end game of this podcast. Any last little remarks you want to give?
I don't think this one's got a ton of playability if you haven't played it. Like, unless you're really looking to experience Fallout and the story, go play it. But I don't think you're really missing anything if you didn't play it. So if you want to, give it a shot. I'm sure I'll touch New Vegas again. I usually will go back to it. So, but not a groundbreaker at this point.
Yeah, and I do think if you're one of those people who has a lot of friends that really, really hype up the New Vegas train and love it, it's going to be like that in and out experience where the fact that they hyped it up so much, it's not going to live up to your expectations because you heard so much about it. So if it's been overhyped, maybe don't play it, especially given its age.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
And if you do, go in, play those DLCs, look into the actual, like, the really fun stories, and honestly, just give yourself the levels. Put yourself at the position where you can play that stuff, go play it, and then experience it, because there are some cool shit in there, so.
I think it's a game.
Don't be afraid to cheat.
That is actually some truth to that. I think it's a game worth playing. I think it's a game worth exploring. And I'll give this caveat, like, if you like exploring, if you like to not beautiful things, essentially, but if you like exploring some cool lore and storytelling, stuff like that, like, you'll find it here, and you can dig it. It's like one of those hard things you have to kind of dig it up to get the good stuff. It's just going to be like that in this game. If you can handle that, then do it. Do it. But for the average person, I don't know if you should go back and play this, because if your game list is probably already too large. But just know that I love it, and it will forever be in my heart as one of my top probably 20 favorite games potentially. My list is always changing. Half-Life is always at the top, but everything else is always shifting on that.
Well, admittedly, I am at odds with most people on this. My understanding is that the majority of people that are Fallout players, this is the one. So don't buy too much into my criticisms of it. It's a beloved game. It's highly rated on Metacritic, both by users and by reviewers. All the signs say it's a good game. I just don't agree with them.
No, there's a lot of people. There is a war online about Fallout 3 versus New Vegas. I just think there's more people on the New Vegas side, so we win.
So we win.
With those final remarks, Shagwa enjoyed Fallout New Vegas. He forgot that he played New Vegas, and he forgot that New Vegas is not Fallout 3 and all those that other stuff. So this has been the Games Reveal podcast, brought to you by Bunny Strike Studios. This is James.
And don't have a Fallout. This is Tyson.
And this is Shagwa.
And this is James again saying,
no,
Fallout
stop.
New Vegas is awesome.
I beat Ghost of Tsushima last week.
And this is Shagwa.